How to do a basic chest roll. Rolls are one of the hardest skills in the game, and even top players really struggle with them, but they're very useful and worth putting the time into. When you start learning the basic chest roll, start without the disc and think about your arm, hand, and finger position. For a good chest roll, you want your arms stretched wide like this. You don't quite want your arms locked, but you also don't want your elbows bent. Generally, you're also going to want your fingers together and cupped just a little bit to the shape of the disc. This is going to correct the angle of the disc to make the roll a lot better. I also like to visualize in my head one smooth track running from my fingers down my palms, my arms, across my chest, and to the other side. It's also helpful to think about your foot positioning. Now this can differ among players, but what I recommend doing, if it's a clock roll, I would step my right foot forward a little bit, like this, and for a counter roll, I would step my left foot forward a little bit like this. The reason I do that is the hardest part of any roll is the second arm. The second arm often needs a little bit more power and a little bit more push to maintain the contact, and especially once you start setting the disc back out. So by stepping forward with the foot on the same side as your second arm, you give yourself a little bit more power to keep the roll going. A good exercise to practice, although it might feel a little bit silly, is to just practice getting your arms into position without the disc. Another important thing to think about is whether to tilt your arms like this. For a basic chest roll, I recommend keeping your arms in the same plane, where your hands start and begin at the same height. But if you're going to tilt your arm, I recommend making the second arm higher. This can make the roll a little bit more difficult, but it's also much more practical, because eventually you're going to want to start crosswind sets like this. And when you do that, having that extra height on your second arm is going to give you a much nicer set. Now, a lot of players will do the opposite, and they'll start the roll up high and end it down low. That can be useful for doing lots of consecutive rolls, but the roll itself has much less utility. You can really only set it into another roll. It's not going to be a good set for a catch, it's not going to be a good set for your partner, and it's not going to be a good set crosswind. Once you're ready for a disc, start with a brand new disc with no slick on it. You want a disc that's really going to stick to your body. Now, there are a few different drills you can do to work on your roll, but the most basic drill is just to throw up a quick set and to try to roll it across your body. The trick to the roll is to make your roll active. It's not just that the disc rolls across your body because of gravity. You actually push the disc with subtle body movements to make it roll. So for a clock roll, when the disc comes in, I'm actually going to just push my hand forward just a little bit. And that's going to be what starts the disc rolling, and it's also going to correct the angle. So I come in, grab it there, and now the disc begins rolling across my body. Once the disc makes contact with my left arm, I'm going to just push my body into the disc, moving a little bit forward and twisting a little bit to the right. And once the disc gets across my chest, I'm going to start pushing out the other way, twisting towards the left. So the idea is I push the disc in here, and then once it crosses, I push the disc out there. The hardest part of any roll is going to be the second arm. You're going to be tempted to let the disc bounce off that arm or to bring your arm in like this to shorten the runway, but really focus on fully extending your arms like this, and eventually you'll get that roll nice and smooth. A helpful drill to work on that second arm is to actually begin the roll way down here and try to push it all the way up like this. This is the opposite of what I say a lot of players do, but if you can get good at this, it's really going to smooth out your roll. You can also make that drill a little bit easier by starting out with spin. Another important consideration for the roll is the angle, and this is going to be wind dependent. If there's a heavier wind, the disc is going to be flatter, but as there's less wind or you're indoors, it's going to be more vertical. It can also be helpful to get your legs involved, especially if you're rolling from low to high. So you can bend your knees at the beginning of the roll and push up as you get to the second arm. Now the roll is a really difficult move, and it's not going to click quite like the delay. You just have to keep practicing, and make slow incremental changes. The roll gets smoother and smoother as you get better. but just make sure you're always focusing on maintaining that contact. If you let yourself get away with a bump or a bent arm, your roll is really not going to improve. It's better to drop now trying to do the roll right than having a bad roll going forward. So just keep at it, keep working on it, and I promise you'll get better.